Hey guys, if you happen to be in the market for a high-end closed-back headphone at right around $1,000, look no further than this one right here. Hey, what's cracking everyone? Today I'm going to be spending some time to talk to you about the SJY Horizon Closed Carbon headphone. It is a closed-back planar magnetic headphone that retails in at about $1,100, and I want to send a big thank you out to Apos Audio, who did send this to me a little while back so that I could get my full thoughts and opinions out to all of you. Of course, I was not asked to say anything in particular about this headphone, but I do believe this is a fantastic sounding headphone and a great option for anyone looking to spend $1,000. All right, so really quick, when you purchase the Horizon Closed Carbon, you will get this nice case to put the headphone in. We'll open it up inside here really quick. You can have a cable come with this, or you can choose to buy it without a cable. And it's got this nice little, cloth padding to protect the headphone. It's case. So I'm glad it includes that. All right, I want to take you through the build of the headphone and kind of start top down. First of all, telling you that this is an all aluminum frame, but up the top here, we're going to see this is a very soft leather headband, and then the strap underneath here is a thicker and stiffer leather strap, and it's got some textured for the part that's going to rest on top of your head, and the other side is pretty rough. That's resting against the pad up top, but that's not a big deal. It's not anything you're going to feel. And then you're going to notice some easy adjustments that will click very nicely up and down. You'll see left and right very clearly labeled on the headphone. I think that is fantastic. That nice little attention to detail there. And the rectangular cups that are made of carbon fiber, hence the name Closed Carbon. There's even a nice little pattern here, and then the paint or pattern that you would call on the cups themselves, it's a brush stroke pattern, and it reflects really pretty in different colors of light. I had a lot of fun filming this headphone for that reason. And the bottom of the cups you're going to notice are the connections for that 3.5 connection, dual monos on the cable should you get this cable or have your own. The pads on here, these are removable simply because they are magnetic. I love this. Very easy to put on and off, and you have that nice indicator there telling you which side the pad's going to face. Now the outer surface of the pads, it is a soft, probably PU leather, and then the surface that's going to touch the side of your face, your cheek, your ears, that is a polyester soft cloth material. It's perforated, so it is going to breathe a little bit, and it's memory foam on the inside, so I did feel like comfort-wise it hugged my head perfectly fine. I didn't find it to be overly clampy, but it hooked on and clamped on enough to where I got a nice seal. And I even tried this wearing some glasses and still got a nice seal for the fit and comfort. Let me go over comfort since I'm talking about that. So it does have a little bit of swivel, and it's got enough tilt that you could actually lay this down straight on a table on the pads if you wanted to do something like that. Now, the only thing I would say, it's 580 grams. So it's not a lightweight headphone. Planars tend to be heavier anyway. I will say though, like when I'm wearing this headphone, because of how the weight is distributed, it's not overly heavy. I do feel it, don't get me wrong, this is not something that disappears on your head, but especially in the summer months, and it is really hot right now, the combination of the heft and the pads, I got to take breaks every now and then, maybe a 5-minute step away and then come back and listen to my music again, and I'm good to go. I didn't have any hot spots or anything like that. Just got a little bit warm over time. Closed-backs tend to do that, but to me, not a big deal. Definitely not a deal breaker. All right, so we've gone over build, we've gone over comfort. Let's talk about that driver inside of this headphone really quick. That driver, that planar driver, was handmade by Jeffrey of SJY. I am very impressed by that. It's an 11 ohm driver, and it's got a sensitivity of 90 dB. So let me tell you right here and now, you will need a decent amp to really get the most out of this headphone. And I'm talking about current, talking about power, okay? Portable things, just simply plugging this into a computer or laptop, that's going to do an injustice to this headphone, in my opinion, and you're going to need to really crank up that volume, and you may not even get enough volume simply plugging it straight into a PC anyway. So I've got the Cord Mojo 2. This is the 4.4 version that I'm loving. This worked, but I got to tell you, I had to really crank up the volume on the Mojo 2 with this headphone, but yeah, that was a good pairing. And then I did also try the R4 Vengeful Series DAP that I have here. And I gotta tell you that I wasn't quite as flattered with this pairing. It worked, it sounded fine, sounded good, I should say, but not great. Not when I heard it with my desktops. So on my desktop, I did use my Vioelectric V281 amp. That was my preference. But then I also used the Burson Playmate 3. I gotta tell you, the Playmate 3, even though it's unbalanced, if I ran it on high gain, I got plenty of volume to drive this headphone and get a really good sound out of it. Now, when I was using the V281, the DAC I was using was the Scion 2, but I also used the Playmate 3's DAC to go into the V281, and all of that worked great for this headphone. So I'm just telling you guys, give this thing some power if you really want to open up its potential. And that is also a segue to talk to you about sound. But I will instead tell you really quick to please remember to like videos like this one if you do like them, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I would highly appreciate that, guys. And with that, let's talk about sound. So the SJY Horizon Closed Carbon has accomplished something that a lot of closed back headphones cannot or have not, and that is this is a really nice balanced sound without being overly done on either the bass or the treble. So I'm trying to say it's not a true V-shaped type tuning that a lot of closed backs can be. The bass extension digs deep. There's a little bit of a roll off there, but it's not a drop off by any means. It's got a nice little hump as well, somewhere in that mid-bass region to provide some attack and physicality to instruments. There is some body into the lower mids, and then as it travels through the mid-range, there might be a slight little dip, but it's not a major dip to where any instrument that I heard ever sounded hollow, shallow, or faint. Now, as we go up into the mid-range, upper mids, into that lower treble, that 3 to 5K region, it picks back up in a way that gives you attack for instruments, gives you enough presence for vocals so that they don't sound like they're way far away from you. And then as it goes into the treble, it is a nice, warm, and smooth presentation of treble. I am impressed by the treble response here because it's a planar. It's gonna give you some details, but it's gonna do it in a way that is not sharp, pinpointy, prickly, whatever you wanna call that for the treble. No, it's got a nice little smoothened edge to it that I really enjoy. Now, taking you through the quality of sound with this headphone and popping up track examples along the way, that bass response, as I said, it's got some boominess, it's got a hump in the mid bass that has this kind of direct hit physicality to it. When I'm listening to electronic tracks, when I'm listening to hip hop type tracks, it's got that hit ya nature to it. Now, a lot of planars can kind of be that in your chest feeling, and this does both, which is something more dynamic driver headphones would typically do. And you got to think, a flat driver like this is really moving to give you that hit in the chest and kind of feeling it through. Now, it doesn't have a ton of excursion, so I don't think the bass lingers on and on and on, and that travels even into the mids and treble I'll talk about here in a second. But also, bass guitars. Bass guitars have so much grittiness to them, and they have a lot of grip to the bass guitars. When I was listening to some tracks that kind of focuses on that particular instrument, I was highly impressed when we go into something like saxophones. I feel like saxophones have that lower end body. They may not have that finesse quite as much up top. I'm okay with that, but it's got that body. And then vocalists. So I was listening to some particular vocal focused tracks, and even though vocals aren't up here and pushed in your face, it's not a vocal forward presentation, it was because of that extra bit of body to them that made it just a lovely listen. Now, one thing with that is I feel like it's a start-stop type thing. It's almost like they're running out of breath, but they're not, okay? So it depends on what you're looking for from the presentation, but truly, I kind of dig that. It was a unique, I don't even say unique, it was just a different way to hear a vocalist present themselves without being overly forward and without having this kind of echoey, feel to it that kind of flutters off into space. And then, even for some of the upper-ended treble, okay, for string instruments, for guitars and things like that, you got that grippiness, but what you don't have is that extra stabbiness of the pluck of instruments. I love blues music, and sometimes on certain headphones, those plucks that you get up top can really sting you if it's presented that way in the headphone, and it's not on this. Now, one thing actually I would say that you got to be careful of with this headphone is, let's say you listen to somebody that's got sibilance in their voice. My voice has sibilance when I'm editing my videos. I have to listen for that so I know where to make that cut. And I got to say, when I was listening on this headphone, I was like, wow, did I autocorrect my sibilance? No, this headphone just is so smooth in that region that I didn't really pick up on it at all. So even though I would say, yes, you can mix and master on this headphone, you do have to be careful about that, because then listening onto another device, yeah, you may pick up some more of that sibilance to where you might have missed out on it with this headphone. Now that actually is a really good thing in my opinion, as I'm going to tell you about when I compare this to a couple of other headphones. All right, so sitting in front of me here, and not intended, but kind of in a natural trajectory of price, are a couple of different closed back headphones. So the first one here on the far left, right to you guys, is the Meze Strada that I did a video on recently. It is a closed back dynamic driver headphone from Meze. It is under $1,000. And then we've got the ZMF Atrium Closed. It is my personal favorite closed back headphone, but it's about twice the price of this headphone, and it's a dynamic driver closed back. And then we have the Caldera Closed. The Caldera Closed is 3 times the price of this headphone, is a closed planar as well. And I want to kind of let you understand, or try to get across, why this headphone firmly plants itself as a headphone you need to consider no matter what price point that we're looking at here. So let's talk about the Strata first. The Strata, one thing I would say that's alike of the closed carbon is that impact into that mid-bass region. It's got some of that body going for it. It's got that kick going for it. And it probably has just a slight bit more excursion going for it as well. It also has a little bit more airiness up top, dynamic driver. And I think the bass port holes help with that. But then the mid-range is going to be a little bit different with this one. This one's got a little bit more of a vocal forwardness to it as well. And there are some tracks, some genres of music that can be a little bit harsh in nature. It's a very unique tuning with the Meze Strada, but I don't think it's going to be one that will be a one-size-fits-all type thing for people with the Strada, even though I think it's a very good headphone. Now, going over to something like the Atrium Closed, and I think you take what the closed carbon does and it refines it a little bit more. The definition is a little better in the details of the treble, and it is going to be a touch more forward on the vocals, but this headphone especially is very amp picky. I have heard the Atrium Closed on some amps that I am not impressed at all, and I just don't like the sound of it. And then I've heard the Atrium Closed on some high-end amps like the WA12 Zircon that I was blown away by, or like a ZMF Aegis, tube amp, something like that, that really brings out everything about the Atrium Closed. And then you got to consider pad swapping options and all those other things with ZMF headphones. But I got to say, like, this has that bombastic nature of bass response like the closed carbon. It's got more excursion to it as well. This thing can just really hit and rumble when I want it to, but it can be a little bit harsh in nature, and it can be a little bit more refined in the details to kind of pinpoint those S&Ts I was talking about, and can give you some harshness sometimes, again, depending on the pairing, but the resolution definitely takes a step up. And then going to the closed, or the Caldera Closed, to me, this is just like a sophisticated closed back headphone. I mean, any genre of music I listen to on the Caldera Closed sounds just right. Like, I don't want to say the word perfect, because I don't think anything is perfect, but it has that kind of perfection lean towards it. Now, it's not going to have that big bombastic type bass response. It doesn't have that same coloration that any of these three are going to have. And that's what I'm saying when it's more of that sophisticated sound. Now, of course, you can change the pads, you can change the mesh, you can make it your own, you can add EQ and do all of those things. But this is also a headphone that really scales with the amps. Kind of like this one can scale a little bit with more power, so can the Caldera Closed. And I have heard this on some really great amps that just make this thing just sound worlds apart from anything else. And it's got the darkest of the background, a black background, and a little bit more of a spaciousness sound. Now, I would say from a space standpoint, I would say either of these two, and even the Strata, has more of a spacious sound than the closed carbon. What this should all tell you right here, again, is that none of these have made me feel like, oh, this is so much worse. It's not. This is a really, really solid sounding headphone that has that just smooth presentation that I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards, and I think will appease a lot of people. Whereas amp pairings, right? Amp scaling, differences of sound, and depending on the genres of music. I mean, all of these kind of have that, where I think this really blends to things a lot easier, in my opinion, again, if you have the power. In closing, I don't know if there's anything else I can really add that I've already said about this headphone, other than just summarizing the fact that this is one heck of an accomplishment from Jeffrey of SJY. Most people will not knock a closed-back headphone out of the park on their first attempt, and I think he did. At least I think this is his first attempt with a closed-back. This thing sounds fantastic. I think it's going to agree with a lot of people, and if you get a chance to check it out, just please make sure that you give it the power that it deserves, because that's where it truly can showcase the potential that it has, and it really has a lot of potential. So with that, guys, I'm going to wrap up this video and just say thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.